Mark, thank you very, very much for joining us. I know that it wasn't easy. And well, it's still from Auckland, but why Multicore World? You can speak anywhere in the world, but this little meeting resulted, it was really relevant for you to come here.
I think there's such an interesting gathering of minds here, from so many different fields. And I think when you're dealing, especially in an area that, we're talking about, has huge general application, but, to have the feedback from, absolute brilliant people in all their different fields, asking questions about what you're doing or suggesting that or how, it's just...
And understanding.
And actually understand. That's the thing. I almost felt, guilty that I wasn't technical enough in the presentation, but, it's wonderful to have people that really ask the deep questions and can help, our business actually grow just by, learning more about
that's in some way
smart minds are thinking about big problems.
Yes. Well, that's in some ways the spirit of trying to make this little meeting, bringing the people here in order for you to, leverage it through that. But on that aspect, going a little bit deeper about your technology, we can argue for a long time, but I want to ask you, what do you sell? What's the product? Well, if you go to someone, are you selling a solution which is already packaged, or you work with the customer, or you deliver something together, or you're just a consultant with a shiny thing?
No, we deliver a product which is actually quite unique in the world of digital twins. I think there's a lot of people who perhaps suggest they sell digital twins, but most of the actual selling of digital twins is consulting or the actual work to build it using, cobbled together from various systems. We're actually proposing a fundamental platform upon which others build digital twins, and we'll do our consulting to help people use our platform and get going, but ultimately our customers tend not to be the final users of it, but they tend to be engineering companies or people that might have built a digital twin using a different approach in the past for their customers.
Now you mentioned platform, and I'm tempted to ask about Omniverse from NVIDIA.
Yes.
Are overlaps are based on that, or what can you tell me about that?
Well, I can say that we work very, very closely with NVIDIA. They're very engaged with us, and what we're bringing is this ontology approach, within the Omniverse environment. The Omniverse environment is obviously very strong from a point of view of visualization and actual AI, compute. There's a whole framework with the GPUs, but ultimately we've got to be able to deal with data, in an Omniverse environment, which is going to come from ERP systems. It's going to come from the whole range of different data and BIM models and GIS data. And what we do is we help actually data enable the Omniverse, in fact.
Well, that's an interesting point, because I was in ISC in Germany a few months ago when a VP from NVIDIA presented Omniverse and the demo with BMW.
Yes.
And we all left with the impression that it was very shiny, very big, very complex, and very expensive.
Yes.
That it was only for BMW scale of customers. But if I'm trying to build a platform for, let's say, the New Zealand primary sector ecosystem, from a single farmer or for an ecosystem, a catchment. A local council want to measure what happened with the floods.
So exactly. So the what you saw with BMW was fantastic integration of visual and physical data. The material information about the weight, the visual aspects of the model. There at BMW, but in fact all of the data side of it was bespoke, hand wired, and not nearly as much as you might imagine. I think that's where the value is. It's joining supply chain data, manufacturing, procurement data. So it's not about running a great visualization alone. It's about what can that visualization do to help me navigate to critical decision-making information. And that's where, to scale something like the Omniverse with data, you've got to have an ontology management system. You've got to have and that's why we're working so closely.
Because my doubt when you mentioned supply chain, because I think BMW gets entrenched with Omniverse and all the features, but BMW doesn't do everything themselves. So I imagine a small leather producer for the seats, either in New Zealand or in Uruguay, that needs to have an ERP or any kind of attributes of the data, would be in some way forced to jump into the Omniverse wagon, or following you could have other options?
Yes, it's interesting you bring up the agriculture side. In fact, one of the engagements we've had with Omniverse is around agriculture. We've built a system, using our framework and platform called Hyperfarm, dealing with ag research in New Zealand, and this was specifically the problem of how do we bring together data about, the agricultural environment. What weather, how does weather impact certain crops? How does soil type impact certain crops? How does light, shade, all of the climatic, and geological structures impact what is the most efficient things to grow on a farm? And this is a huge amount of data that is in different systems, different formats that need to be brought together through an aggregator like Ag Research, but then it needs to be visualized, and to get control of the visualization and the fundamental data structures and then deliver it into an understandable digital twin that can help make better decisions about a farm. This is what the Omniverse needs to achieve.
Yeah, but you mentioned ag research, and I cannot avoid the temptation to ask you about Hyperfarm.
Yeah.
Hyperfarm, but
Hyperfarm, yeah.
But how would you relate to? I mean, it's done in ag research in Lincoln, and then with the support of animation research. Yeah. But is this something that overlaps with what you have done, or?
Yes, yeah, they're all overlapping, and we're all very inclusive. I mean, ultimately, there will be useful data in all of those systems, and
even if they have or don't your ontology.
Yeah, we and again, I come back to the point that we don't have an ontology, we have an ontology management system. So we're about helping people bring together taxonomies, ontologies that already exist and unify them. And that way we can federate digital twins, we can federate data, we can federate geometry, we can federate imagery. We can federate it all into one coherent model that again and again you can ask the same question through a standardized API and say, give me data about that thing. Tell me all of the ways that I can visually represent that thing. Tell me how that thing is structured within its grouping system, what it's connected to, what are the documents attached to it. And so regardless of whether it's already sitting in some other database or visualization system, it doesn't matter. It's a framework for joining, ultimately, not a framework for creating a single repository, but a framework for joining.
Thank you very much, Mark. Much appreciated. All the best.
A pleasure. Thank you very much for having me down here for the talk. It's really great.
My
Nicholas.
Pleasure. My pleasure.